What's going on, guys? It's Jorge Aquino coming to you live and direct right here out of the west side of the PHX. It actually feels like fall. Oh, it's glorious. It's Tormenting Tarmac podcast where the enthusiast never dies. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. Date of recording, it is October the 21st in the year of our Lord 2024. Um, for anybody who wants context of where we are within the timeline of life, we are 4 days away from game one of the World Series, New York Yankees versus the LA Dodgers. Yankees in six. We'll see as to whether or not that prediction comes true because this podcast will probably release maybe like a week and a half prior to Thanksgiving. That's how far out we are. But ladies and gentlemen, I think I have really two super dope guests with me tonight. Um, I think the best way to go ahead and to describe them is car content creators. But then additionally, they're actually like a really dope ass car couple and a power couple in and of itself. Harrison Woodruff is hanging out with me. Avery Sly is hanging out with me. What's going on, guys? Welcome to TT.
Hello, hello. We're happy to be here.
Hey everybody, glad to be
It,
here and excited to talk some stories.
dude, it's I'm very stoked that you guys made it on. You guys, I've seen some of your content and stuff like that, and like it here's the thing, here's how you know someone's actually really good at something and really can catch your eye, because like Harrison, you don't post that often anymore on your IG, but then you look through your stuff and I'm like, damn, this motherfucker's dope. Like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, we
No,
don't post that much anymore, but when we do post, it is fun. That is for
for
sure.
sure. Is there a reason behind that? Is it more so like you like to go ahead and keep your stuff private now, or is it like are you cooking something in the background? You've just been a little bit busy, or
It's kind of all of those things. Yeah, I mean, when we do post, it's definitely something we've been cooking for a while, whether it's a build that just comes out of nowhere
right?
or being busy traveling for the outside jobs that we do, or just life being busy, or trying to stay private in some aspects in some ways. Because when I was out in California, that privacy definitely got infringed, and got a little goofy sometimes. So
I can imagine.
wanted to keep that privacy is definitely nice. But another part is, since everything did so well on the generic media side, not necessarily YouTube or Instagram, but in like general journalism, I found that to be my avenue to really get my content out there, whether it be something in, Rob Report, or like being a judge of Car of the Year or Wall Street Journal. Doing all kinds of fun stuff like that. That's what I've kind of come to really enjoy
Right.
doing and being in that realm of content creating. So yeah.
No, I love that, dude, because like, you're a young guy, right? And I see, and the way you just went ahead and described it in a way, especially with, what you're doing on the other aspect of media now, it almost seems like you're kind of taking the Matt Farah route a little bit, where he kind of like he really got started with his YouTubing and like he was doing like the fun, crazy content going on, the crazy bull run rallies in the day back in the day and whatnot. But he took all that experience and then really honed in on what should become the smoking tire. Would you kind of describe that's kind of what you're trying to do right now with your stuff?
Yeah, fair enough. Pretty much spot on. Because I mean, if we need to put out a YouTube post or do a social media run on TikTok and Instagram for brands or to get a build to go,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. Do it all day long. Like with the McLaren, with that build, like that's exactly what we did. We only posted 3 videos of it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a year and a half long project, but brands asked us to pitch that in, and we did. And I mean, the grand reveal was awesome, but it is what it is. So, I mean, each project nowadays is going to be different.
Right.
Each environment's going to be different, and each end result's going to be even cooler. So,
I hear you. Now, let's not go ahead and have that take away from what Avery's up to, because Avery is
oh,
actually hella dope, right? Like,
absolutely.
I think I don't know exactly how it came to be, because I found Avery's account first, and I think it was like through our mutual friends, and like all of a sudden, like, you just see like this dope ass chick, just car week, hypercar here, Pagani, what was, I think it was the Wyra, what's the carbon fiber one that really popped off recently on your
The
page?
green one was the Wyra R.
Yeah, that's sick, girl. Um, and like let me be clear, and I think, and I've said this on the podcast in the past, like I wasn't always the biggest Pagani guy. I respect Horatio for what he brings to the table as a visionary. I respect him for what he does from an artistic standpoint. Obviously, he's also an enormous driving enthusiast. So when you really think about what Zonda was, Wyra was, now into Utopia and all the other things that all the other one-offs that he builds along with that, right? I don't think really people truly understand that there's a lot more driving dynamics between in these Paganis because all we see is the art. So you see this, Wyra R and whatnot. Like, has that always been a brand that speaks to you, or where do you see your love for hypers?
So I guess my love for hypercars has been a interesting journey. I can't say I was always like a woohoo Pagani person. And I wasn't always like really dedicated to my love for hypercars. I started with supercars, and like a few years ago, I didn't really know that much about cars. And so I became a nuisance to everyone around me. I'd be like, what's that? What's that? What's that? And just like kept asking and absorbing. And so for a long time, I was actually a Lamborghini fan. And you and I had a debate about this a little bit on
We
Instagram. And
did.
so I had to bring it up.
We're gonna have it tonight for sure.
We're gonna
100%.
have
Thank you
it
for
down.
bringing it back up.
So down.
100%. Yeah.
Um, but I was like a huge Lamborghini fan. And then I was just a little bit uninspired by the idea of putting body kits on the Aventador and calling
Mm.
it a new car. And so that's kind of when I started branching out and exploring other brands. And I do think I get asked this question a lot, like if money was no option, what car would you have? And despite my affinity for Pagani, the answer to that question would be the Hermes Bugatti Chiron that Manny
Mm.
Coachman has. Because how could you not? Like that thing is gorgeous. Um, but definitely Pagani. I just think it's so beautiful the way that Horatio kind of like sees the automotive world, and he really creates drivable art, like you mentioned. Obviously performance is there too. Maybe it's not the best performing hypercar you'll ever see, but I just think that anytime I'm at the Quail or an event or a car show and I see a Pagani, it makes me stop in my tracks, and I just think that's something special.
I completely understand where you're coming from on that. And, I'm happy to say that, and maybe it's just the fact that, you guys both know this because you guys are so deep in the game, right? Like, cars have changed a lot over the last like 2 decades. And technology continues to go ahead and just jump in crazy ways, almost to the point where like I kind of wanted to slow it down for just 1 second. You know what I mean? Like let's live in the moment. I just had this conversation the other day on another on TT with someone else, but now that a few days have now gone by, I'm still trying to understand my feelings towards it. So right now, where we are, October the 21st, in the last 3 weeks, we have now seen two of the brand new, what should be Holy Trinity cars once more. And it's the usual suspects. McLaren dropped the W1 same weekend of the Velocity Invitational. Ferrari just dropped the brand new F80, literally, I think 4 days ago. By the way, I can't believe I can say this. 992.2 GT3 actually dropped, I forgot that was a thing. We're going to talk about that tonight. I'm looking forward to talking about that with you guys. But you mentioned something, a body kit, Avery and Harrison. I'll throw it over to you real quick, brother. Because I look at W1 and the specs are crazy. And I love the fact that we got a V8 twin turbo hybrid again, because I think that's the right move. And I'd like to go ahead and get both of you guys' thoughts on the F80 in just a second. But I'll start with you and then send it over to Avery. But yeah, Harrison, like you see this W1, and we know we've seen P1 like 10 years ago.
Of course.
Technology jumps forward, but I feel like we're running out of ideas aesthetically. That's me. Where do you see it?
Um, I would agree. I do think that with all these new cars every single year, every single big car event, there has to be a new car. And when you have that kind of pressure for every brand to try and bring something to market, whether it's for the show or for clients pushing for one-offs, you're gonna run out of ideas.
Mm,
And you're gonna start using the same bases and same platforms. And as we see, like the Aventador,
right.
it's just the same car from the early 2010s,
Hmm.
you know, same basic platform up until just now. But and how many different variations were there of the Aventador in all seriousness?
A
You
lot.
know, yeah, they looked a little different here and there. The price tags definitely changed, but you know, up and down all over the board. But even when you get into this, hyper level car,
Yeah.
you can only go so far with design before you
Mhm.
get away from the pure idea of a predecessor.
And
Right.
to that point, I feel like with design, like one of the videos that I had that popped off recently was a video of Pininfarina's B95 Gotham,
Mm.
which is a hyper concept car. I believe that they said they were going to make 8 of them. Don't quote me on that. I think that was correct. But as far as I know, their plan was to make more than one. And I just think that they have done a great job of trying to make something that has a bit more of an original design.
Hmm.
If you look at that car, one of the main comments I get, aside from a debate as to whether or not Pininfarina is an Indian or Italian company,
That's a
people love
debate,
it.
bro.
Oh,
What?
people love to debate the heritage of these brands. Well, because there's a holding company called Mahindra that purchased Pininfarina. And so that means now that Pininfarina is Indian, according to a large amount of commenters, which I've chosen not to get involved, but thank
Hmm.
you for the engagement boost. Regardless, the other comment I've gotten is about the design of that car, and it's a
Right.
beautiful car. Oh my gosh, it's like a piece of art.
Right.
Is like what happens if it rains because there's no windshield and there's no roof. And I just think that they've done a good job of making this car, but they've also done it for such a specific niche. The story he
Hmm.
told me is that this is a car that you have shipped out to Monaco when you go out there, and you come out from your hotel, and the valet brings it around, and you drive it around the day around the streets of Monaco, and then you bring it back and you put it back in the garage. So rain shouldn't be an option because it's a fair weather car.
Hmm.
But I think to Harrison's point and to your point as well, you mentioned like you wish that we could kind of like slow down and take it slow. And I do feel like there's the constant need for something new and the constant pressure on these brands to produce something new, or even newer versions of existing cars to the point where I feel like we're seeing a lot kind of fall through the cracks in a way, but also like he said, we aren't seeing the most original designs. Like yes, I love Pagani, but a lot of them look the same.
They do.
Like like aside from, full carbon fiber like exteriors and stuff like that, which I'm a sucker for. But you know what I mean? Like it's just I feel like we are looking for the new at the cost of genuine innovation and genuine creativity in design.
No, wow. Yeah, how long have you said that you've been in the game now, Avery? Because you
I
sound
think
like
it's
you've been in it for quite a long time. The way you're going ahead and bringing these attributes to the table right now, and majorly respect that genuinely for someone who literally began this podcast by telling us that you haven't been into the hyperguard game for that long, but you clearly understand what someone like myself, someone like Harrison, someone that has appreciated hypercars for a lot longer, you clearly get the mindset. And I think you're absolutely right. I want to bring up a point to something that you just said in defense of you and in defense of Pininfarina, to be quite honest. We have something called a cell phone, and with a cell phone, you know, we have the weather app, right? So, like, the weather app tells me right now it's 75 degrees in the city of Surprise, Arizona, right here in the Phoenix metropolitan area. So, I would assume that the owner of said Pininfarina would be able to go ahead and see what the weather will be that day and drive it out on a sunny day. So when you say what happens when it rains, there's a very simple answer to that. You don't drive it. Period. The fact that that's still a conversation to this point, I feel like, here's a perfect example of something. The other day, earlier today, I was on Instagram, and Supercar Blondie, I give her a follow on Instagram. So shout out to Supercar Blondie. Never met her. I'd love to have her on sometime. So if this ever gets out and gets clipped, what up, Alex? But she was going ahead and doing a video on the 300 SLR, right? That's it is right now. I think it's the most expensive car ever sold. Sold for 100 milli, I think is what. So it's more than a 250 GTO.
Way up there.
Way up there, like just an obnoxious price. And somebody in the comments was like, I would take this or I would take that. And it's like, once more, we're getting lost in like, the technology thing. And I respect people's opinions, and that's perfectly fine. They're entitled. First of all, I know for a fact these fools can't afford it. So I'm not even going to get into this debate with them because I can't afford it. But additionally, I don't think that sometimes I feel like people don't appreciate the history as much as they should. We forget about it sometimes. You and the three of us don't, right? A lot of the other enthusiasts that listen to this podcast, I don't think they don't. But I don't know if it's the casuals. I don't know if it's someone that just loves the new. But how can you go ahead and try and sit there and debate whether or not a car is worth 100 million when you know that the reason why it went for that was because of the history behind it? Right, Harrison? I mean, you do all this media, you cover this type of stuff. When you hear something like that, how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's exciting because um, collecting classic cars, muscle, or land yachts.
Yeah.
You want to call that. Some of them. It is, in a way, a very large way, a dying breed of collectors. Um, because typically, when somebody gets a poster of a car, you're starting your teenage years. You're a kid, you might be 7 or 8 years old. And then that car is forever going to be ingrained in your mind. And by the time you buy it, can afford to buy it, you're 40 or 50. Well, now other 40 and 50-year-olds want it. The collector value raises. Now you might not be able to afford it until you're 60 or 70. And for people to still have the same taste as those, older than us, more, wiser generations, for younger generations to have those same tastes, it's very exciting because you don't just go and buy that for the history and not cross your fingers a little bit to hope that it does stay around that value.
Right.
I mean, that's such a large number, you just can't. But it is exciting because it shows that people are still interested in history, in car history, dating back all the way back to those 300 SLs.
I love that answer, and I think you're so right. I think us as the enthusiasts who love almost every single aspect of car culture, I feel like I've never been one to go ahead and say let's be the gatekeepers or things of that nature, but I do think that as we continue to become the wiser generation, right? And because I think we are, I think that we hopefully, right? I would think. Just because I like to go ahead and see cars going ahead and flying at 100 miles an hour, and it doesn't matter. Just because I have my hooliganistic tendencies doesn't mean that it shouldn't take away from the fact that I value history. God damn it! But my point being is, I would hope that as time goes on, that we kind of keep that spirit alive. I hope that we can do it. I hope others can do it and whatnot, because I don't want to go ahead and be like, oh, I'm trying to appreciate this 300 SLR, and then somebody's going to tell me that's not worth 100 million. It's like you don't get the opportunity to go ahead and say whether you think it's worth it or not, because you clearly are choosing to not pay attention to the history of it, and you're also not choosing to pay attention to what it means to someone else. And, that's some reminder that I have to go ahead and even give myself to sometimes, to be quite honest with you. And I'll call myself out on it, because I'll see some of the weird stuff on Bring a Trailer on Cars and Bids that's going for a little bit more than I would have expected to. And I'm like, why is a PT Cruiser being sold for 15 grand? I don't care how clean it is. Like that should be going off a cliff. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh, it's my least favorite car, I think, of all time.
yeah, it's up there with the Pontiac Aztek. I'll say that. Yeah, 100%. And so I'm glad that you went ahead and gave myself that reminder. You brought up something really interesting because now you got me interested, and you hook and sinker, bro. And I'm curious to know. And I'll start off with Avery. Avery, Harrison just brought up, a car that you go ahead and see when you're 8 or 7 years old and whatnot. What was on your wall when you were growing up? Because you both are a little bit younger than I am, but you were, I'd probably say like maybe a little decade in between us. Not too crazy. What was it for you?
Well, I'm actually glad you asked this question because, like we kind of talked about at the beginning of the podcast, I
Mhm.
haven't been a car enthusiast necessarily forever. I'm not going to say that I've not always had a passion and an interest because I have, but I come from a small town in Canada, and that town has changed a lot. It's grown a lot. We actually had like a 300 SL there,
No
at one.
way.
Yeah, and funnily enough, the one time I took Harrison back home, I'm like, yeah, you'll never see any cars here. And then of course there's like a rally going through, and there's like a Huracan, an R8, a Gallardo, like all kinds of things. And I'm like, of course, the one time. But growing up there wasn't a car scene aside from heavily modded Honda Civics, which there's
Mm.
nothing wrong with, to each their own, respect all builds or whatever. If you're in that group, you don't have to though. That being said, that was kind of the car community that was in my hometown. Just a lot of beaters and a lot of guys that loved their beaters. And
Sure.
there's, it's so I didn't really necessarily grow up with an aspiration. That being said, I got my dad was the one that introduced me to video games at a very young age. So some of my first exposure to cars was actually through like Forza and Need for Speed and all kinds of like fun car games. I know Gran Turismo. And so I liked the cars that went fast. And then through Forza, one of the first cars that I got in Forza where I was like, wow, this is something I actually want to have in real life was a Porsche GT2 RS. And I was like, okay,
Okay.
one day I
Nice.
will have one.
Are we
That,
talking 997 GT2 RS or are we talking 991 GT2 RS?
honestly, that's a fantastic question. I think that a GT2 RS is a GT2 RS, and I'd take what
Fair
I
enough.
but
Fair enough.
ideally like the YSOC package too. Like just
Okay.
if money's not an option here, we're throwing it around. Yeah, I've never actually been in one. It's like one of the only cars I've never been in or had the
You
opportunity.
are not the only person on this podcast who has not been in a car of that magnitude. I will say it. I would say that. If anybody out there has a GT2 RS that they would like to that they would like to let Papa Tarmac sit in, happily oblige. Oh,
Yeah,
let's
if they want to take us all on joyrides, that'd be
yeah,
we can meet at the Buffalo Wild Wings. We'll buy dinner. And then we'll go for
that
a
or
ride.
Korean barbecue. What's up?
Yeah.
Uh, I dig that. Okay, so GT2 RS looks with Y-Sock package. I would assume that you're talking 991. I really like that car. I also love a 997 GT2 RS. Harrison, I don't know if you've ever watched it was Top Gear US, and it would have been Tanner Faust when he drives the 997 GT2 RS around downtown LA. Have you ever seen that video before?
Haven't.
Dude, I gotta send that to you. Remind me after this pod. I'm sending that over to you. You're gonna be like, Jorge, thank you for changing my life. Because it's
I don't
actually true.
Sorry, I don't think I've ever watched any Top Gear US, but I've watched like all the UK one. To me,
Okay,
there
all right.
only is the UK one.
Sure. No, no, no. I get
Like
it. I get it. Listen,
Richard Hammond, I just want to put him in my pocket, he's just a little.
he's tiny.
Hey,
He's a
if
tiny
he's
human being.
listening to this, let's chat. Don't worry, I won't ever buy a Remac. It's fine. We can be friends.
Perfect. I love it. Of course, shout out to the Grand Tour because it just ended, and oh my god, that last episode was sublime. I actually teared up when Jeremy Clarkson unplugged his mic, right? But we I brought it up, to Avery, and I'll go to you, Harrison. What is the car that was on your wall when you were growing up? I would love to know because I've seen some of the stuff that's on your page. You know, believe it or not, your Baja F-250 is what caught my eye the most because I think that truck is dope as hell. But I would
Thank you.
love to know what was because it's sick, dude. But what was on your wall when you were growing up, brother?
Um, I mean it ranged. There was stuff from split window Corvettes to in middle school like the 430, the 458.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there was an Aventador on the wall a couple times, and then I also had a bunch of those little like 1/16th size models.
Yeah, the diecast ones.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And there was I had like a GTR. I had whole range of stuff.
yeah,
But the ones that really stuck out would be the 458
right.
from the childhood. And
That's a good one.
yeah.
That is a good one. No, 458s. I think now, um, it's a really interesting car, the 458, because like when it came out, it was this whole because that 430 was great, right? But
Oh yeah,
458 to me really like elevated Ferrari to like a point where it's like, oh man,
it did.
like this is not normal, right? And I think to me, it still holds a standard even 14 years later, where
Mhm.
you're just like, yo, we got to move on from that being the standard. But it's so freaking good that it's
Yeah.
like, I mean, Chevrolet used that as their standard to create what they did with the C8Z06. And you look at a C8Z06 and you drive a C8Z06 and you're like, no, no, I get, and they nailed it. And it's so interesting that 14 years later that's still the standard. And
Absolutely.
it's amazing. And like, a 488 is dope, super dope. But and I think there's a different contingent out there that is starting to appreciate the 488 a little bit more. But
Mhm.
458 is still the peak. And if you want to really get into it, Speciale and Speciale parts, I really like a regular Italia Spider.
Of
Like I
Mhm.
course.
think that that's an excellent car. Like if you were to go ahead and like, I had like 250 large, I'd consider a black 458 Spider with a peanut butter interior.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
that would actually be, sexual content viewer discretion advised. You know what I'm saying? Like,
No, for sure.
yeah,
Fair enough.
Rated R.
yeah, full on, just like that would be like, I feel like I'd be the king. I'd be like, like, dang,
Yeah.
man, that's not bad at 250 large.
No, and what's crazy is for the age of the car,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that old, but in the grand scheme of things, with everything, with how fast they've been, producing cars and new brands, new models, and blah 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 blah, it's astonishing, and it shows how many people appreciate that car by the valuations of them still. Like the
Mm-hmm.
secondhand market on the 458 is one of the strongest. It's incredible.
Right.
You can go and have a 15,000 mile 458 and it's still heavy twos
Yeah.
cases.
It, it-
Unless
it's 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 really odd, dude. But then you understand why. And I mean, you compare it to like it's contemporaries from back then. Um, you know, Gallardos are interesting. I think that LP 560-4 and up, I think that they're starting to hold better value. I don't think quite the value of the 458. The only ones that are holding the super, super heavy value would be a 6-speed manual LP 560 or I think LP 570 Super Legeras are holding really, really good value. Super Trofeos are like, you know what I mean? But then you look at an MP4 12C or or a 12C, and hell, the 650.
yeah,
I mean, they're cool. Don't get me wrong, but like they ain't a 458, bro.
no,
Um,
not there.
and it goes back to the earlier point that we were making of McLaren, as cool as they are and as great as they are, they've been the ones that have really been pushing the technology forward, like at a quick pace.
Hmm.
And then every other manufacturer that's within the space, not named Porsche, decided to go ahead and follow suit. So Ferrari, I feel like they took that bait. They took the bait, and I don't think they should have taken the bait because they set the standard with 458. And
Yeah.
then when MP412C was quicker from 0 to 60 and quicker in the quarter mile, and it had a faster top speed and had quite a bit more horsepower, Ferrari took that bait, and I don't think they should have, man. It
Mm-mm.
was it was
No,
the wrong
I agree
call.
with that. I agree with that. I mean, you can, like, I guess Elon did a good job of explaining it in the truck market.
Mm,
Everybody makes the same truck, kind of, sort of. They
right.
all look exactly the same. They all have the exact same function. Now, you could be a Ford guy or a Chevy guy or, a GM guy or, well, a Dodge guy.
Mm,
It really, at the end of the day, is just whatever you prefer in the brand, and you're going to get a good truck that'll last, all of them will last you 5 years. And for a good work truck, that's what you need.
right.
People took the bait. And there just needs to be those brands that say, screw it, we don't need to do those, status quo norms and make something different. Now, I'm not saying the Cybertruck is a great example of that, but he definitely did not take the bait and he did something different. And it would be good to see someone try to do that
Sure.
instead of, like you said, just take the bait and run with technology in the supercar world.
100%. And listen, I mean, I've been very vocal about my thoughts on the Cybertruck, to be quite honest with you. Um, I have my thoughts, and anybody who listens has probably heard them. And I even have my own respective thoughts towards Elon Musk. And I'm not going to go that route, but I will give credit to where credit is due.
Yeah.
And that was the fact that even though I don't think it is, to me, a real functional type truck,
Mhm.
he did something that it's like, I can't even knock him for it, because like I thought people weren't going to buy it, bro. I was like, this thing is not good. This thing isn't real. That's what I
Yeah,
thought to myself. And then,
agreed.
bro, I see 5 of them a week.
All
And
the
I'm like,
time.
you know how mad it makes me that Elon Musk made me look like a dumbass? Like, that is something I didn't want to have to take to the grave, but now I have to. And it's like, come on, Elon. Like, God,
But he disrupted the market
he
and he made
did.
something different. And love him or hate him, love the truck or hate the truck. Like,
Mhm.
I think that could potentially be a catalyst
Hmm.
to
Yeah.
shift the market and put more and like pressure on these brands to actually come up with something different. There's gonna be a new F-250 every year. Okay, now how can we make it different? Like, what can we do to
Right.
actually make our cars special? And at any price point, I mean, like if you're just buying an entry level F-250, or if you're buying a Super Baja or something fun and exciting, or Raptor R, gosh, I wish.
Right.
It depends. Like I feel like he kind of opened the door for brands to be a bit more creative, because
Yeah,
now there's proof that people will accept these crazy ideas.
I
So
completely
it
agree.
gives more of an opening to explore that.
I don't think that without the concept of what was potentially the Cybertruck, and definitely even without Elon Musk's placement and where he is in cars and whatnot, I don't think that we get the Rivian R1T. And that to me is one of the coolest trucks out there, to be quite honest with you. And it's an
Yeah.
electric truck. I think it's awesome. I don't think that the Silverado EV turns out as good as it has turned out to be. The F-150 Lightning turns out as good as it of a good product that has turned out to be. I'm sure that, and I'm not sure if Ram is going to go ahead and bring out an electric Ram, but they're clearly changing their design. Let me be clear. Ram has never had a problem making their trucks look good. They've probably
Yeah.
been the best looking trucks on the road to date. But I think that as much as I like the Hemi V8, and obviously the Cummins diesel is an entirely different thing,
Mhm.
their issue was never aesthetics. Their issue was just, the interiors and things of that nature. But that's a whole different story for a whole different day. You're
And
absolutely.
recently all the recalls. So
Oh, an insane amount of recalls when it comes to Ram products, which is actually really sad because they didn't used to be like that. Like Ram, I think I would say from like 2013 up, there was a good chunk of time where a Ram 1500 Hemi was a solid truck. And again, I mentioned the Cummins diesel. Uh, I don't talk diesels a lot too often on the podcast, but I mess with it quite a bit. The inline six Cummins is probably like probably the premier inline, or excuse me, diesel engine on the market today. You're coming from a guy who you drive a Power Stroke, bro. And I mean, Power Strokes are dope, but I mean, Cummins is something serious, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't have a Cummins, you want to have a cat in there,
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing. They're just reliable, durable. Throw them in the water and they'll still go 100,000 miles afterwards. It's
Absolutely.
right. I mean, it's just a different ball game
Yeah,
of engine.
Hey,
for
speaking
sure.
of water and Rivian R1Ts and stuff, did you guys see in the news, and for the listeners, if you haven't seen this, there was a Rivian truck that completely survived the hurricane in North Carolina. He left it parked outside of a building. It floated, I think, over 100 yards, like completely floated, picked up, was not where he left it. He goes to pick it up, turns on, drives. Like it was crazy. And if you look it up, I'll send you the video after this, but it's
Please.
coated in dirt and somehow the thing completely survived the hurricane after being picked up and carried away.
That's
It's
impressive.
That's
crazy.
wild.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the world in Southern California, Johnny Lieberman is sitting at his house and smiling at that story.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? 100%. And shout out to Johnny Lieberman. Like, that's incredible, because Lord
Really.
knows most regular EVs would have gone ahead and short circuited 100%. And I mean, a regular ignition car would have probably short circuited, and the water would have gone into the engine and just would have been kaputs. Like, that's pretty remarkable in and of itself. We brought up W1, and I'm going to get us back to F80 in a little bit, but we're kind of on this truck trajectory, and I feel like this is the right moment to talk about two different things, because you guys are big truck peeps. You both love fast cars and stuff like that. We're going to keep talking about that, obviously, but as I mentioned earlier, Harrison has this insanely cool F250 Baja that I was just like, damn, that thing is sick. But then, not to be outdone, Avery's got this. What year is it? 71, right?
78.
78. Excuse me. I'm dyslexic sometimes. I apologize. The 78 F250 that is like super rad, and because of timing of the podcast, we can actually discuss it, which is fantastic. But let me go to Harrison first, because that was the first time that I was like taken aback, and I love modern heavy duty trucks. And so you bought this F250. How long have you had it now, brother?
I have had it now about 2.5 years.
2.5 years. How many miles are we talking?
Not a lot.
Okay.
Like
Hopefully more.
like 10,000 miles.
That's not bad. Hopefully we can put some
No.
more on it too.
Well, it's just because we're just with everything that we do and all over the place.
Yeah,
It's just not with me everywhere. I don't
I
drive
get
it
it.
up to Georgia, Montana, California. I don't. It is. I mean, she drives it more than me, honestly.
Yeah, if
But
you see that truck on the road, odds are, and it has limo tent, so you won't be able to tell, but odds are it's me actually
All
driving
right.
the thing.
That's
I mean, it's seen the mud, it's seen the dirt, it's seen the sand. It's not a mall crawler. It knows it's built what it does what it's built for.
love that.
So it's been a great truck. I bought
Mhm.
it because I needed something to tow with.
Mhm.
I can't tow a gooseneck with it because of the stuff in the back, but it does just fine with a bumper pull. And many trailers are bumper pulls, so it
Yeah.
does it. Oh,
Well, and like, and this timeline, so speaking of technology pushing forward, all we've seen for the last like 15 years is GM, Ford, and Ram go ahead and just continue to up the torque game on these suckers. I think we're seeing now, like, can't you get like 900 and plus feet, yeah, pound feet of torque in an F250 or F350 these days? And I think you can do the same with a Silverado and a Sierra.
correct. Yeah, I'm pretty sure with this Baja package, I'm pretty sure it's over 1,000.
That's insane. We live
It's
on a
ridiculous.
timeline where we have 1,000 foot-pounds of torque, and I understand that it's a heavy duty, but like, I think some of these heavy duty pickups, man, they might be towing more so than a semi, or they can't. We're getting up there.
Mhm.
Absolutely, it's incredible.
It's crazy, dude.
Yeah,
Like you,
all
you
power.
don't need that much torque, man. You know what I'm saying? But
Hey,
I
except
love,
with the red light.
yeah, I know, man. I love it.
Get
I
on the
like,
highway nice and easy, but
Uh,
I 100%. And it's not like they're not, they don't have, they have good chunks of horsepower too. It's still talking like 400 horsepower, 450. Like
yeah.
the fact, and then you get some of these dudes or dudettes, because Avery, I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that you drive it more than Harrison does, because there's so many, and maybe it's an Arizona thing, maybe it's a Southwest cowgirl thing. And shout out to the ladies, it's all good. But we live in a timeline where, like, you got like a 5'4", 5'3" cowgirl with her boots on, and she's driving like a 6 or 8 inch lift, you know, F350, not even a dually. You know what I'm saying? And
Absolutely.
like the muffler is bigger than my face. And like you think to yourself, like, oh man, that must be like that's gonna be a dude that's got a complex. And I say that because I would be that guy. So I'm speaking for myself, right? But then you all of a sudden you see it's this like tiny human being of a female, and you're like, give me some dap, sister. You know what I'm saying? Like I love that. And I'm all for it. But what I was gonna get at is like people are going ahead and chipping these engines, man. And then you got people like pushing like 650 horsepower and like 1,200 foot-pounds of torque, and you're like, what is wrong with you? But I love you at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Why not?
why not? I love it.
Yeah.
It's
Hooligan
so
at it.
good. It's incredible. I want to ask you one last thing, because you went with Baja, and it's Shelby product. It's Shelby American product, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Correct.
So you went with them when you could have gone with I think Megarex makes a package, which is basically Avery brought up the Raptor R earlier. This company making F250 into a Raptor package and stuff of that nature, and or you can go with the Tremor package from Ford directly. What was it about the Shelby Baja package? Was it the fact that you knew it was something different and it was a little bit more like even extra, like, intense, that you were just like, you want that in your day-to-day driving?
Um, Part of it was I did really, really like the Raptor Baja, the
Right.
F-150, and it being on the F-250 frame and suspension. I really appreciated that because it's going to be way more durable, especially if you're taking it off-road.
Right.
An F-150 frame, Raptor frames can be fine, but you have that extra steel underneath there with the F-250. So
Absolutely.
that was part of the reason. And then this specific truck, I went after this one because they produced it from 2021 to 2022, and they just
Mhm.
came out with a new one in 24. Um, and they only did 250 of them, right? So the first batch, the majority of the batch, actually, the whole thing was supposed to be done in 1 year. It was supposed to be 2021 because of all the chip issues. It got pushed to 2 years.
Okay.
Well, those last, like, they say it was like 60 or 80 trucks, the 2022 models. Well, because of the 2022 model, they got the big iPad screens, um, which obviously makes them even harder to find. And
Yeah,
this
for
one
sure.
has one of those with the iPad screen. It's a 2022 truck with the big iPad screen and the updated suspension, with the updated uh, steering rack and all that kind of stuff. So it has a couple extra features that the 21s wouldn't have,
Mhm.
while still being the Baja package. It's got some extra accoutrement on it. It's kind of nice.
No, dude, I mean, it's sick, dude. Seriously, I love it. I mean, I've gone on record saying, like, if I had an entire like garage, I'd have my cars. You guys maybe listen to the podcast, you probably know what cars they are, and if not, I'll be happy to tell you, because I love the cars that I want, whatever. But like, I would generally have like as new as possible F350 non-dually, and I would lift it by like 6 inches, and I would tell people I whatever, like that's the way I like it. I will literally, I'll use a ladder. I'll climb up it. I don't care, bro. I'm 5'8", brother. Like I could care less, and I would do it, and I would just haul everything. I would tear down Chase Field for craps and giggles. You know what I'm saying? But one of my
Yeah.
favorite movie scenes of all time is, if you have you ever watched Lethal Weapon 2?
Yes.
Okay, all right, hold on, Avery. We're gonna school you real quick. We got you. So there's a scene, and Harrison, back me up on this. Mel Gibson, he loses his girlfriend because the South African drug dealers killed her, right? So he goes and saves Joe Pesci and Danny Glover, and so it's a house on the stilts in L.A. And so he goes ahead and puts this anchor on the stilt itself. And he's in it like a 1989 GMC Sierra dually. And he just tears this sucker down with his truck. And it's like, yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to go ahead and mess up the bad guys' house, except hopefully they won't kill anybody in my family. But that's not the point. I want to tear their house on stilts down. And so, like, that's what you want in a truck of that magnitude. Like, I want that. So I'm so glad that you have that, bro. Like genuinely, it might be my favorite car of yours that you own. Like, which is weird.
No, fair enough. It
It's
has its own place for sure.
100%.
That's one thing with collecting or just trying to having a few cars is, you know, yeah, you have a couple, but are they the same? Do they have the same purpose?
Right.
Or are they diversified and you can actually do this, you go to the track in this car or go out into the desert in this truck,
For sure.
versus having three SUVs. Why?
Exactly. Exactly. So, which now this brings me to Avery and now your build, because your build is going to be. And by the way, we're going to talk about the F-250, but don't be fooled. I dig the Abarth, sis. We're going to talk the Abarth. Don't you worry. I love the Abarth. I think it's awesome. Um, there's this YouTuber out in the UK. He's my favorite YouTuber out there. His name is Sam Fain, Seen Through Glass. He's amazing. He's awesome. And so back in the day, he used to own a 695 Deposto record edition, which we never got here in the States. And it was yellow. And it was like, I'm like, damn, man, if we had that in the States, I would be ripping in that thing. It'd be the
Right?
best thing ever. It really would be. So shout out to any Abarth, the fast Abarth owners. We'll talk about your Abarth in a second. But I am curious to go ahead and talk about this build because I knew you had it and I knew you were working on it. I didn't know that it was what was happening moving forward. So first of all, I should have said congratulations before we hit record, but I'll say it now. Massive congratulations on this opportunity
Thank
because
you.
it is going to be at SEMA.
Mhm.
I take it that yourself is extremely involved. Harris is extremely involved. Who else is involved? Who are you working with to create this wonderful build?
So we have a wonderful media team that we work with that has been a big part of like connecting us with a few brands. I can say this now because the podcast isn't going to be released, and you're actually one of the first people we've told that hasn't been our family. But
I'm honored,
assuming,
guys. I'm honored.
and I
Let's
mean,
go.
the weeks before SEMA are a nail biter. I mean, goodness gracious, we have the best team. I want to start too, because like we are working with a few people right here in Arizona. This truck, it's very important to, I'm Canadian, but I've lived in Arizona for the last 10 years. So I do consider this to be home. And this truck was delivered to Arizona in 1978 or 77. I'm sure it's always a year early. And it was located on a reservation, and we are only the third owners. If you want to get like, we're technically the third owners, but the guy in between us and the original owner, all he did was put a new engine in it and drove it, I think 50 miles or something. He didn't go very far with it.
Wow.
Um, so we're kind of like the second or third owners of this truck. So it was very important for us to do an Arizona themed truck and work with as many Arizona businesses as possible. So we have our whole interiors getting done right now as we speak by the amazing team over at Fat Fender Garage. They do such amazing work. We saw them actually before we even got the truck. Because we looked for months and months and months. We found her on Marketplace. But we actually found Fat Fender before and we wanted to work with them and it just so happened. And then we have a close friend of a friend of a friend who is doing the actual build. He doesn't have a commercial shop. He kind of just does it for a fortunate few and for himself. And you've probably, if you are familiar with like the vintage F-250 market and you're listening to this, you've probably seen one of his builds roll across the block at Mecum and I think maybe Barrett Jackson.
Sure.
He usually builds them and flips them. So we have those amazing guys. And I know I've been building up to this, but we are going to be on Tread Pass for Toyo tires at SEMA.
Wow.
Yes, assuming our car is done. And it is gonna be it is gonna be done, but you know, always that build up. Like I have friends who have had cars in SEMA and they've been ripping wraps off and putting bumpers on at 3 a.m. the night before. So it no matter how much you plan, it's always still a little bit of a it always gets into the fun like the crunch time. That was the word I was looking for.
Yeah.
We also have we're gonna have obviously Toyo tires on the truck, Method wheels, and a few other things as well. But our the most important thing to us, honestly, was just staying true to Arizona. So we are obviously I can't like show you because it's still in pieces right now.
All good.
By the time that you hear this podcast, we will have done our
Oh,
press
it will be
thing.
on the dedicated post,
Yeah.
1000%. I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna go ahead and put that truck next to the Baja, and it's gonna be groovy. I'm gonna love
It
it.
can be the
Yeah,
cover for the episode. We can
100% for
but
sure.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, no, it's gonna be really cool. Harrison and I spent a lot of time designing it and talking about this. We've been working on it. Goodness, we got the truck, I think, in February.
Mhm.
So it's been many months now, 8 months of like work and design and lining up partners and but it's been so much fun. And it's funny because we've really only driven the truck like 2 or 3 times because it just went straight to the shop and has lived there ever since. I'd have people asking me about it in the middle of summer, and I'm like, she's old. She doesn't have air conditioning. I mean, she does now, but we didn't have air conditioning. I'm like, it's not like we're just gonna go drive it around. The old seats were in shambles. Like you'd sit on it and then you'd be covered in like I used to sail competitively and you'd get like fiberglass on you sometimes. And that's what it felt like. It was very like abrasive seat material. I don't know.
Yeah.
So now we're gonna have a gorgeous brand new leather interior and it's gonna be great. We're very excited.
No, this sounds like it's going to be insane. And I know that you said that the last owner put in a new engine, so it's got like 50 miles on it. I didn't ask, is this a gas engine or is it a diesel?
It's a gas engine. It's a 450 Lincoln. 460 Lincoln,
Oh,
sorry.
dude.
Yeah.
Big
No,
block engine. Let's
yeah,
go.
we were asked, they were like, "Oh, do you want to like Godzilla swap it?" Or and we're like, "No, we're gonna keep the engine that the previous owner put in it."
I,
So
I res I respect I
at least for
respect.
now, until that
Sure.
engine blows up or dies, and then
I was
you
gonna
have no
say, I mean, I'm
choice.
sure it won't blow up,
Gladiator.
but a 460 big block. That's a big, we're talking what, like that's like 7.7 liters or something like that. If my
Yeah.
math is right. And so like I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, that's a big thing, but like somebody offers you a Godzilla. I gotta ask you. I'm gonna ask you, Harrison. When that offer was offered to you both, how did you? How long did it take you to go ahead and say, "No, we're gonna keep the 460 big block"? Because, like, come on, bro, it's a Godzilla.
Well, the first part came in quicker than you would expect because the reason it took us so long to find a truck is because we both liked the late 70s era trucks.
Mhm.
Right.
But the 460
They're
wasn't
awesome.
introduced, right? They're
Mhm.
awesome. Bump side, dent side, either way you go.
Gorgeous trucks.
But the 460 wasn't introduced until the mid to late 80s.
Mhm.
And we like those trucks, but those are more modern looking in a
Right.
significant way, right?
Right.
Because I mean, there's two model changes in between there.
Mhm.
So when we found this one with the 460 in it, it was like, oh, it's the perfect sweetheart
Mhm.
bundle, right?
Right.
Original truck, everything's here. There's no rust. Perfect.
On
And
the
we got,
engine.
yeah, well,
Yeah. Yeah.
there was no rust really anywhere,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
Yeah, on the
Patina.
engines, but yeah, patina. There's lots of patina.
Oh,
That's
for
very
sure.
true. But then the other aspect came into play when we also wanted to keep it original as
Mhm.
much as possible.
Hmm.
Obviously, putting AC in it, different radio speakers, new seats, blah, blah,
Creature
blah, right?
comforts.
Creature comforts.
Right.
But to put the Godzilla in, it would have been a lot of frame modifications, if not an entirely new frame.
Mm.
Right.
And from there, the frame and the body, the numbers wouldn't be matching. And
Mhm.
obviously, the engine numbers don't match. The trans does, but it just wouldn't have been as true to the truck.
Yeah. We were
That makes sense.
like obviously when a car person is faced with two Godzilla or two not Godzilla,
It's very
it
tough.
is a challenging decision, but
Very
we
much
really
so.
had it on our hearts from the very beginning. As soon as we found the truck and we heard its story, it was we were kind of set on the idea of kind of keeping it as original plus. Like we wanted it to look like it had just been special ordered kind of thing. Now we
Right.
keeping the exterior
Original.
weathered, and we had people ask us, oh, why don't you paint it? But we like the patina personally,
Hmm.
and I think it tells the story of this truck that's been here in the desert for, now I have horrible math, but like 46 years. And it's we wanted to really keep that original as much as we can. We are keeping the interiors still. Our dash, I think, is going to be the same, the red.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it'll be red.
So
That's
we're
gonna be so gangster.
some parts of it are 100% going to be true to the original as much as we can. It was the things that, like all the creature comforts, and then, quality of life upgrades like new seats.
No,
So
I hear you. By the way, I like how she says I'm horrible at math and immediately hits 46. But I mean, okay.
I did the mental math earlier, so this was pre-planned.
Okay, I feel that. All right, all right. Respect, respect. I love that, guys. I really do. I love the fact that you're wanting to go ahead and keep the essence of what that truck meant to the previous owners and things like that. And I'm glad because yeah, you could easily go ahead and buy a truck and then, it's like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and make it all new on the inside and then just, whatever. I think it takes a lot more work and I think it takes a lot more passion. I think passion is the right word to go ahead and take what's there and really love up on it.
Mhm.
And I love
100%.
that. I love that. You know what I mean? Like, to all those people who go ahead and do resto mods on American Muscle, I love a good resto mod, dude. I'm not gonna lie to you. But like, if you also went ahead and told me that, I don't know, you have a 69 Camaro with a 396 and you want to go ahead and just rebuild the 396 instead of just dropping an LS3 or an LT1 into it, I'm going to be like, all right, cool, man. Hell yeah. But
Mhm.
let's rebuild, let's bring that 396 back to life. Let's
Hmm.
do that. I would go ahead and make it a 5 speed instead of a 4 speed, sure, but like it doesn't like it's how do I put this? I think giving it a 5 speed instead of a 4 speed is just getting him it's injecting a little bit of steroids in the butt cheek. That's all. That's all it is, man. Like
Yeah.
some of these cars, they need that. Other than that, I think that the whole vibe of that is immaculate. And what you guys are, what your thought process was behind this truck. I love that. I love the fact that the Arizona theme is so important to you. But you've mentioned that you're Canadian twice. Where from?
I'm from a small town called Kingston, Ontario.
All right.
It is now, okay, people from Kingston, if any of y'all are listening, um it's not a small town necessarily because there's smaller towns nearby, such as Gananoque, Brockville, Merrickville. Shout out to all those people as well. However, when you like I think the population there was like 117,000. It's a little big town because
Sure.
there's a military base there and there's a university. And so a lot of the people that are living there are there for one of those two things. Um, and then coming from that to like Phoenix, which gosh, we have like a population of like 3 million or something like that,
Yep.
maybe
The
more.
entirety of the
Um,
Phoenix metropolitan area is, I mean, Phoenix is the second biggest city on the entire West Coast.
yeah, and Kingston's grown a lot because we've had a lot of like immigration there. I mean, heck, you can get amazing food there. And like, the buildings have popped up since I've left, but that was 10 years ago. But if by most people's standards, and I've taken Harrison there and he agrees with me, it is pretty much like a little big town. Like we've got our main drag, and like you leave your house and you're gonna probably run into someone, you know?
Right.
Um, so yeah,
It sounds to me like Kingston is almost like the Canadian version of Tucson, actually. Like, I'm not even going to lie to you. I mean, I
probably.
literally was just in Tucson yesterday and I stopped at the Raising Cane's on the south side and I ran into like somebody who I hadn't seen in like 7 years. And I'm like, what are their freaking chances? And mind you, Tucson has now grown to almost, going up to about 1 million in the entirety of the metropolitan area. So it's not a small town by any stretch of the imagination, but the people of Tucson still have the closed mindedness of treating it like a small city. Hence the reason there's only the I-10 that crosses through Tucson, which is something that I just despise, but I still love Tucson. And so I totally get that because, you kept on bringing up Canada and like, I was like, I wonder if she's like, is it Toronto or is she from BC or, you know what I mean? Like, that's just, and so, no, that's what's up. So shout out to Kings. I feel like, is there a medical school over at that university?
There is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well,
Oh, Queen's University. Actually, Elon Musk went there for like a year
I want
or
to
something.
say like, so okay, like over at my work. So yeah, I don't care. People, the chair of my orthopedics department is from Canada, actually from the north. Shout out to the six, and I'm pretty sure I've seen a bunch of physicians that have Queen's University on their resume. So, yeah. All right, Kingston, we see you, baby. What did that?
Yeah, putting Kingston on the map. Let's
Put
go.
Kingston on the map. You know what I mean? Putting him more on the map than Drake ever did. Let's freaking go,
Yeah.
dude.
The
It's
six,
just,
what's that? Never heard of
it's
it.
just whatever. Get out of my face. Who needs Drake when you got tormenting tarmac, yo?
Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
Um, but I am so happy, and more so, what really brings me so much joy is that even though you've only been here for 10 years and whatnot, I really appreciate you wanting to represent our state. And obviously, I assume that Harrison has a lot to do with it. Because Harrison, how long you been in Arizona? You're a native Phoenician, right? No,
3
3 years. That's it, my dude. Oh,
And
That
no
is.
dude.
summers, not a single summer. He'll tell you he's been here a summer, but he's not lived it. He's always somewhere else.
In and
So
out.
Harrison,
In and out.
Harrison, we need to change that. You need to at least be here 1 July, bro.
I can't say I can't say I was here for last year. I was here for like 19 days in July.
Okay, that should count, Avery. We should let him have it.
okay, okay, fine. Just
We'll let
just
him
because
have
we're
it.
on the podcast, but it's okay.
100%. No, no, that's awesome, dude. But I genuinely appreciate the theme behind that, and more so, I love the fact that you both have taken your platforms
Mhm.
and choosing to go ahead and rebuild something from the ground up and then give it the theme of where your heart lies. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's really really cool. And
And
yeah.
the other thing, it just kind of popped into my mind, but
Mhm.
it's interesting because and I've never really framed it this way, but it's interesting because a lot of people will want to go and they'll want to pick up a Tesla or an electric car because they believe it's sustainable. But isn't this kind of more sustainable in a way? Like we're taking even the new parts, like we have a new drive train, for example, with new axles or something. It was taken from a truck where a tree fell on it. So,
Mhm.
we're recycling those parts. They're not going into the environment. Our engines from the 80s, like I do think that for anybody that's an aspiring collector or who wants to do something more sustainable in a fun way, like it doesn't just have to be a Tesla or, an electric car. I'm not even going to go down the electric car rabbit hole further than I already have because we don't have enough time, frankly. We'll have to do another episode for that. And I might tick some people off. I've got a lot of strong opinions. I've been trying to reel them all in for the sake of it being my first time here.
Okay, first of all, let's just go ahead and say this. You don't ever have to worry about keeping in your opinion when you come onto this podcast. If you've got something on your mind, I allow you the platform and the time to go ahead and say whatever it is you please. So do not feel like you have to hold back, both of you. The floor is yours. Keep going, please.
This just became a Tesla slander podcast. No, I'm just kidding.
Always down for that. I'm kidding. I'm
I'm
just
just
kidding. I'm just kidding.
kidding. But no, it's like it is really cool to take something that, has been here for a long time and give it new life and breathe new
Mhm.
life into it. And I mean, like we talked about collecting cars earlier, and I just think that this is how we like to collect. I mean, Harrison's done it with his cars in the past. He's always taken them and put his own spin on it. And I do think that that's one of the beautiful things about cars, going back again to our discussion about design.
Mhm.
A lot of brands, Ferrari excluded, you can take and you can turn it into your own, or you can take kits and, piece together kits or buy a full kit and like make it something special. And we see that so much. And I think that like as enthusiast, you're not boxed in by the age of a car anymore. You're not boxed in by, what the original manufacturer comes up with for design or power or anything like that. And I just think it's so cool. Like it's so awesome that as car people, we get to like basically create drivable art. Maybe it's not a Pagani, but like a modded Abarth is still a fun thing to drive. So, hey, it's still Italian.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Not
And
Indian like Pininfarina is apparently.
it's not Chinese like lotuses, apparently. Um, yeah. But here's something I want to go ahead and say based on what you just said. And I think that if you actually do the research on it, people will understand where we're coming from. When a car has been on the planet and still ongoing after like 25 years, let's say, at no point in time is it's no longer hurting the environment. It's actually being more cleaner than a brand new car is coming off the lot. Like, EVs, they're clean. We know that. We recognize that. But at the same time, it takes them a while to get clean. They're going to be clean eventually, but unfortunately, and this is just the God honest truth, and I think the three of us know this, the procedure to get to where they're trying to get to,
Yeah.
it's not that clean. Again, it's going to end up being clean, but unfortunately, I don't think there's a really clean way of building a car. Straight up, like there's just going to be dirtiness behind it. And that's just it's a sad fact, but it's a fact nonetheless. And the oil, people can go ahead and tell me all they want that, this is going to be super clean and whatnot, but like all the minerals that have to go into it and all the, they're having to go into, I'm glad that they're going to different parts of the world. And if they're going to go to somewhere that's like ice, that's populated by a small population and whatnot, the first thing I would like to go ahead and make sure that they're continuing to do is making sure that you're taking care of the population that's over there. Do not go ahead and like run them off and take away their land because you want to go ahead and build a brand new EV plant. If that's what you're trying to do, you can politely get the fuck out of my face. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm just being real, like, right? And so it's a dirty process either which way. And so if you're going to take an older car like you guys are and wanting to give it new life, that to me is 1000% the right move. 100%. And additionally, I don't know, man, it just breathes new life into you as the enthusiast. The level of enthusiasm that I'm seeing from the two of you on this project is the most level of enthusiasm that I've seen on this very enthusiastic episode already. You know what I mean? We talked about some fun stuff, and yet somehow, some way, the biggest smiles that I've gotten from Harrison has been his Baja F250, and then the F250 that you guys are doing for Avery. Like that's what's up, man. You know what I mean? So like,
we're basically bored people, I think is the conclusion that we've.
Sure. Yeah. Listen, Kent's going to listen to this one and he's going to be like, hey, we're good around here.
Like, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my native Ford fanboy right over there. He's got a Shelby GT350. He's got a Focus RS. He's trying to get a GTD. You know what I mean? It's all Gucci. I love that. So once this is all done, we're hoping everything, you brought up the fact that you're in crunch time and there's so many things that go into it and whatnot. It kind of gives you a whole brand new appreciation to these like car build TV shows, right, Harrison? Like I always really thought I always really thought that they went ahead and just purposely put it down to the wire when it came like to like fast and loud. Like, nah, bro, they really did get loud. They
Yeah,
got
yeah,
to.
How it
it's
happened.
how it happens. I mean, and this is not, I've been a part of other builds for other reveals and stuff for like Art Basel. I mean,
Mhm.
I've been up till 5 a.m. taking off carbon fiber panels and trying to heat them up to
Right,
try and make the gel coat. Just push it just a little bit more before you crack it and make it work.
right.
It really is not intentional almost every single time.
Yeah.
Something comes up and it's just you never saw it coming. You don't know how it got there or
Mhm.
why this occurred.
Mhm.
Always does. Like we dropped this truck off, like she was saying, 8 months ago. And we had a build plan. We had sponsors confirmed since like April. And, obviously there's other trucks that are in front of us. We're not, there's other customers or other trucks that he's doing for himself and his friends
Mhm.
um, that have priority, and there's nothing that you can help with that. And
Right.
sometimes, other people, there's hangups, and then you get stuck with those hangups, and those
Mhm.
hangups cause you hangups, and it just snowballs.
Right.
But, um, oh yeah, from all kinds of projects, little ones, big ones. It always comes down to the wire, no matter how hard you try and plan.
I do have to say though, I
100%.
feel like I've been pretty lucky because I mean, obviously we still have 2 weeks left, but the team that's come together to work on this truck has made it so easy. Like we got wheels in 3 days sent here.
Wow.
Yeah, we've got like our interior. It's pretty, I think they're installing it either today or tomorrow. And we met with them, I want to say 2 weeks ago. So in two
Mhm.
weeks, they've taken our interior and just made it beautiful. And they've done such a good job. Like all of at Fat Fender, all of their stuff is in-house, like everything. So I just feel I feel kind of spoiled right now. I mean, I don't want to, I'm gonna knock on wood, but as so far, like our everyone that's put a hand on this truck has made it such a lovely experience.
Mhm.
And it's just been so great working with everybody because they've made me a lot less stressed than I feel like I could be.
Mhm.
Right. No, that's honestly something that is quite amazing. And I'm glad that people go ahead and are giving you the support that you guys want while you guys are giving them the support that they want and stuff like that. Because obviously, clearly Avery's got her respective Instagram account and her Instagram following, which she's really worked very hard to go ahead and build up and maintain. And you brought up the fact that you are, shout out to the engagement peeps. T- Tell me that you think it's Indian because it's going to boost the reel. Let's go. But then
Yeah.
additionally, which brings me to this, Harrison, because like, you stepped away from your respective YouTube channel and posting content on your respective page and whatnot because you're working so behind the scenes. I want to ask you something because I'm always interested in getting people's thoughts on this because I feel like whether it's the algorithm, whether it's the content, whether it's anything around it, media continues to evolve even quicker than some other aspects like technology. We brought it up, right? Media is this consistent. Oh, would you say it's a evolution or it's a consistent revolution? It's hard. How would you describe it in this day
I'd
and age?
say it's a consistent revolution.
Right.
Yeah, I would say so because it's not necessarily evolving,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's just always something new. Like there's always a new, there was TikTok wasn't around.
Right.
There was Vine before that. There was Musically before it, obviously, it kind of all turned into TikTok, but that all wasn't around. It was a revolutionary thing that boom, TikTok came.
Right.
It didn't evolve out of, Musically, yeah, sure. It just changed names, but that created that kind of idea around that type of media. And in modern media still, I mean, in standard media today, like the big media houses, they are still doing the same things that they did 20 years ago. They get cars on lease, they drive them around, they have a blast with them, some hoonigan stuff, and they write the reports, whether it's video or written form. There is just still articles, there are still videos, and it's been like that for a long time.
Right.
Now, then you have those revolutions of Instagram and then Facebook, TikTok, and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think it's necessarily evolving. I just think it's a revolution.
For sure. Where do you see, because it's clear to me that you and I kind of have a very similar thought process in what is media and whatnot. And I always have this like really special love for it and understanding of it. Like, what would you like to see out of it? Like, because we see a lot of short form, but I'm also seeing long form really come back, right? In
Yes.
particular, like in video. And then obviously, and I'm saying this because I do it, clearly audio, the audio platform for podcasting, even though the video aspect of it has really, pushed onward and whatnot, I still like just to go ahead and pop it on Apple Podcasts and be like, oh, I'm just going to listen to it instead of having to watch it. But my point is, we're seeing all that. So, like, what is your preference of a media outlet for yourself as expression, and then, but also from what you continue to build? What's your preference, and what do you see moving forward?
I do appreciate long form content. Something a few years ago that I wanted to start doing was more like uh, documentary style, long form with sit down interviews and
Yeah.
go through build processes and stuff like that, which we might see that with this build. We might
Oh my
not.
gosh, that would be awesome.
Um, I mean, it happened so quickly. Some of the stuff we didn't get a chance to get, but the form of the idea of long form content is definitely in the front of mind
Mhm.
in this build and in some other types of builds, not necessarily automotive, but some other stuff that is coming in the pipeline just in life. And that's one reason why we kind of stepped back from the daily vlogging and stuff a few years ago was we were working on some, I guess you could say, mockumentary style stuff, documentary, mini movie film things. And some of them never came to fruition, but that's fine because the main star of the shows, the cars, either they
Right.
got finished, sold, or um, just didn't make sense for the role that they were. The whole idea around it just didn't exist anymore. But I would say definitely a long form, and then just modern, standard media house literature. Media articles or getting on a long form journalistic video.
Yeah.
My kind of enjoyable outlet.
I agree, dude. You know what I reread the other day? Um, there is a journalist who passed away a couple years back. His name was PJ O'Rourke. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he used to write like in the 80s and the 90s and to early 2000s. He wrote for like Car and Driver and the usual suspects, right? And he wrote one of the coolest articles I've personally ever read. And it was, I think it's Ferrari North America back in like this was in the 80s. They needed to go ahead and get a Ferrari 308 from New York City all the way to LA for a movie set, right? And it was back in the day where like, the transports wasn't a normal thing as it is now, where you can just easily go ahead and get a transport, go ahead and move it over and blah blah blah. So they asked PG O'Rourke to drive it from New York to LA in a straight shot. And I think it was like just after New Year's or right around. So like the streets were going to be like kind of empty because it was still the holidays and whatnot. And that's a full on long form type of article. It's not a review or anything like that. It's a long form piece. And I reread it the other day and I was like, dude, this might be the best article I've ever read.
Yeah.
And it was just the essence and the capture and the adventure. And I think the theme of adventure at times gets lost in a lot of the media forms that we're in today. It gets lost in TikTok, it gets lost in Instagram reels. The sense of adventure can only be really put out in a long form style. what Avery and you are doing right now with this F-250, that is an adventure, and that deserves to go ahead and be documented in a, and of course, if you're not going to be able to go ahead and document everything. We recognize that, but I hope that in this particular outlet that we're doing today, in this long form conversation, I personally think that you guys have been able to go ahead and really invest me into the story of what is that truck. You've been able to invest me in the adventures of what you continuously take, both of you. And it's just so cool. And it brings me over to you, Avery, because where would you classify your majority of your content creation? Would you say that it's your Instagram page, or would you say it's more so than that?
A lot of the content that I create right now is more short form content. I have
Not
always
to take a
enjoyed.
shot at you on the short form.
No,
That's not what I
no, of
meant.
course not.
I know
No,
you
no.
know what I meant. Okay, cool. Just
Yeah,
checking.
I've always loved making content, and for me, like, I'm glad you brought up adventure. For the people that have known me for a long time, adventure has always been kind of at the core of my being. Like, I've done some really cool stuff that has nothing to do with cars. That is a lot of like outdoor adventures and stuff like that. And to me, that's always really important. If I only get one life, I want to make sure that I'm enjoying it. But then also on the flip side of that, it's like capturing those moments. And I agree with you that I think that true adventures cannot be captured or communicated or shared as well in short form content. Now with automotive, I do think that, a lot of times, a lot of the videos I'm producing are, okay, I saw this car, I've had like 30 seconds to grab content before like 18 people. It's always when I pull my camera out that someone's like, oh, let me walk right in front. Harrison can attest, it drives me crazy. It's
Dicks,
just
man.
how it goes. I mean, sometimes you're in such a busy place. Like
Right.
I walked in front of people too. We're all guilty of it. But like I think that short form actually does work for cars because in a short period of time, in 10, 15 seconds, you can show a
Mhm.
lot of a car. So I think that that being said, though, I did used to, I was like the host of a YouTube channel for a local dealership out here, and we did kind of more long form. It was like 5-minute videos, but that was like more of encapsulating the driving experience, giving details about the car. I mean, obviously the point of that was to sell it, but I think that there's people that do long form YouTube style automotive content so well.
Mhm.
And I just think, and then there's people that do short form content really well. And I think the real winners are the ones that can do both really, really well and really like show you glimpses of that adventure in the short form, but then like really make you a part of it in the long form content. And so I'd like to branch out into long form more, but for me, a lot of my long form content passion lies in like travel videos and stuff like that.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
I did go into long form, I'm not 100% sure I would necessarily do it with cars. I'd probably take it outdoors, but yeah.
I hear you. There's one particular Instagram content creator and who does YouTube that I have really come to appreciate what they're doing as of late. There's this one lady, and she's based out of Miami. I think her name is Lexi Limitless.
Mhm.
Is her YouTube, and yo, that chick respectfully is like freaking dope. Like Ford Europe gave her a, I think it was a Ford Mach-E or something like that, and she took this EV and she went to as many countries as she possibly could.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that is insanely cool. I don't care if it's an EV or not. Like, just the whole idea of it is insanely awesome. And like, this is going to be an obscure as hell reference. Do I care that it's that obscure? No, I do not, because it's my podcast, damn it. But there's this dude, and there's, the show Dragon Ball Z, right? One of the
Mhm.
greatest all-time anime shows of all time. They made a movie which was terrible, but it's called Dragon Ball Evolution back in 2009. And so the guy that played Goku, who happens to be a guy named Justin Chatwin, who happens to also be Canadian, shout out to him. Um, he went ahead and did something recently where he went ahead and did so he's really into motorcycles. And what he did was he made his own 7 episode documentary, which I've seen like 2 episodes of them. I need to finish the rest of it, but it's on YouTube right now, and it's called No Good Reason. And so basically, him and his buddies, I think they went ahead and like took their motorcycles from like Vancouver to Patagonia. And I'm like,
Wow.
that's what's up, dude. Like
Yeah.
that's the sort of stuff that I want to see. Like I think we're starting to see it more often. I'm down for a YouTube channel to go ahead and make like a 45 minute to hour long piece and release one a month about crazy cool adventures of that manner.
Mhm.
I think car culture is really missing that. I hope that we start to get more of that. And I don't know, man. I feel like that's kind of the trajectory you guys are wanting to go in. And if that's the case, like there's a big old sign. I must fly the W the same way the Chicago Cubs do, man. Cause like that's what's up. Like that's what I want. You know what I mean? I guess that's what I'm craving. I hope more people are craving that.
Mhm.
No, I totally agree. And yeah, I mean, towards the end of like the vlogging and everything, like we were trying to push. Do we start doing multiple? Because a lot of the vlogs turned into rallies, right? It
Right.
was 3 days here, 5 days here, Gold Rush, 10 days. Do we say screw it and say this was like you said, like 1 month, we'll have what was Savage Rally in there, New Rally, and then like a couple other night car scene things going on,
Right.
and have it as like a day two,
Mhm.
5 days later, blah 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 blah. Tie it in somehow, somewhere cool in there. Have some of that hidden behind the scenes stuff because there is a lot of stuff that goes on between you know, rallies, and if you're in the social media sphere of that, going between your shops, fixing your wraps, getting those sponsors to get you new parts, or meeting with the reds, the heads of the rallies. That way, everything's done correctly,
Mhm.
both ends. So having some of that back end footage is kind of cool because
Right.
yeah, you just did 3,000 miles over 9 days. Okay, what the heck happens after that?
Yeah.
You know, where does the car go? Who deals with it? What's going on? There's a whole nother storyline that is getting missed. And there's lots of content creators that still do rally stuff,
Mhm.
but are just missing that side of it.
Well, I think that's also one of the reasons why everyone loved that Netflix show Drive to Survive,
I still
from
love that show.
F1.
Mhm.
And I've only watched like the first two seasons, but they show so much more than just F1. And as a random aside, like that's actually what I'm like very into bull riding. If anyone follows me on Instagram, they like see my random bull riding posts that make no sense
I
in the context.
have.
Um, but I got into it because Amazon did a documentary called The Ride. Fantastic show. Like the production quality is really cool. But they showed some of these guys and they showed their families and they showed their home lives and they showed, packing up. They showed in the locker rooms. And you really kind of got more of a sense, okay, it's not just a guy riding a bull for 8 seconds. It's so much more than that. And it's stuff like that that shows the behind the scenes, that shows the work. I mean, we've seen it over the years, those like car build shows, Top Gear, like, a lot of adventurous shows where they show more than just the what you see at the
Real.
show, because anyone can go to SEMA and see a truck on display or see a
Mhm.
car on display and think, wow, that's really cool. But it's a whole other thing to see a truck knowing its story, or see a car knowing its story, or to learn the story and the history of the car. I think it's just, it makes it so much more special. And I think that that's something that any automotive content creator, and especially the most successful ones, should consider. So,
Mhm.
I
yeah.
completely agree. There's a reason why Anthony Bourdain's still the standard. Years after he passed, and even though he wasn't a car journalist or anything like that, but his way of storytelling, his way of evoking emotion and things of that nature, there's a reason why he's still the standard to this day. There's a reason why the Ferrari 458, like we discussed, is still the standard of this day because of the level of evoking emotion and things of that nature. Um, Guys, I think I'm going to end it right there because it's been really good. And
Yeah.
I know that we and I didn't get a chance to go ahead and tackle Ferrari F80 with you guys. And there's still a couple other things, but there's a part two that's not that it's not like, oh, maybe we'll do part two. No, 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 we're doing part two. Part two is coming with Avery and
Oh, we
Harrison.
got to
This
talk
that,
about the
that, we
FEMA.
got we got to talk about it all. And I think that, you know, it's best reserved. And I know, obviously, I know it's also getting late. You guys have dinner plans, so I don't want to go ahead and ruin that for you. But it's been, when I say that it's been a treat, like this was so much better than I even expected, and I knew that it was going to be a banger. But you guys have been superb, and you guys are, first of all, and I'm not being facetious when I say this. I think you guys are adorable. So you guys have a wonderful relationship, and I appreciate the love that's going on. And you know, we see a lot of car couples out there and things of that nature. And this, you guys are a wonderful, wonderful pair of human beings. So I appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate the hard work, and I appreciate the effort that you're putting into your storytelling for what you're doing. And most importantly, and I guess that's the theme of tonight, is that sense of adventure that you guys are really trying to evoke to the people that are following you guys' storylines, in every form of facet of media for Harrison, and what you're doing on your Instagram account for yourself, Avery. Please continue that. It's something I truly admire, and I want to continue to go ahead and see grow. So if you ever lose that sense of motivation, please listen to the last couple minutes of this episode, because I'm trying to tell you right now, keep doing it and keep pushing it. I appreciate you guys so much. Okay.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you.
It was an honor.
Absolute blast and an absolute honor to be on here. So,
Oh,
Yeah.
dude, thank you so much. And I'm so glad, you know, Avery was telling me earlier that she hadn't been on a podcast in a hot minute, that this was her first time coming out for a podcast in forever and a day. And I was like, if you're choosing to do mine, I don't know what to tell you. Like, thank you. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's go ahead and we'll plug social media handles and plug everything that both of you guys are doing. Harrison, where can the peeps go ahead and find you on social media? Where are you churning out the most stuff, and also, you know, all of your media outlet stuff, all that.
yeah, sure. If I do appear, I would come out of the ghost work on my Instagram. Most likely, it would be just my name, Harrison Woodruff. And then YouTube, if we do start throwing some content out on there, you would see a heads up on the Instagram, but the YouTube is also just Harrison Woodruff. It's very simple, make it very easy.
Yeah.
Other than that, I mean, you might see something on the interwebs here or there or in a magazine, but that's just all I am. It's just those two.
Love it. Love it. How about you, Avery?
I'm just the benefit of having a random name is that I'm just Avery Sly on all social media. I tried to keep it consistent. Normally, I'm posting on Instagram, but I am trying to grow on YouTube Shorts as well. So you can find me there too. But I'm usually a little bit more active than Harrison.
Yes.
So you might see him on my page, maybe.
Yeah.
For sure. For
But
sure.
yeah.
I mean, you know what? I was able to go ahead and get Harrison on IG. He did respond to my messages, and I was like, "Oh my God, this dude is a G." So I appreciate you. And
Absolutely.
but clearly the main contact, is Avery, clearly, because that's how we made this whole thing happen and all that good stuff. And you love to see it and whatnot. I appreciate you both so much. The next time we record, we are going to go ahead and make it happen at a Korean barbecue.
Okay.
That actually, either that or should we do Buffalo Wild Wings? We did mention Buffalo Wild Wings tonight. Either, I don't know, whoever.
We'll let them bid for our attention, I think, at this
Clearly.
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, I mean, collectively, we have about 150,000 followers. You know, I've got 1,200, which is a minimal. Harrison's got 10. You've got like about 129. I think that we bring in like a really broad audience. You know what I'm saying?
I actually follow this amazing account on social media called Arizona Asians. So I'll hit them up and see if they have a good KBBQ recommendation. Because how great would that be? That's like some ASMR in the background. You got like sizzling wagyu, you know,
Yes.
like now I'm hungry.
No, no, I'm starving. I need to go eat dinner right now. If I'm not mistaken, there's I think there's a podcast out there. It's called Dining with Racers, and they'll go ahead and eat dinner while they're podcasting at the restaurant. I'm like, yo, that's such a W. And you know what? You want real ASMR? Not to go ahead and plug myself, but I'll plug it anyways. You want to go ahead and listen to the 3 Velocity episodes. All the race cars are all in the background.
Oh, I
yeah.
love
Every
that.
single one of them. It is insane. Me and, shout out to Cody, CJN Photography. We got drowned out by a Mercedes AMG GT race car flying by the media center over at Sonoma Raceway. We got drowned out for like a good 2 seconds. It's the only time I'm willing to go ahead and be okay with being drowned out. It's all good, Greg. It's all good.
Yeah, fair enough.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Harrison Woodruff. That's Avery Sly. At Avery Sly is where you can go ahead and find her. You can go ahead and find him at Harrison Woodruff. And of course, go ahead and just type it in on YouTube, and then go ahead and type in Harrison's name on the interwebs, and you'll go ahead and see all his articles that pop up and all that good stuff. It's fair enough that I think it's fair to say that we have become good friends now, and I appreciate you guys. And then you can go ahead and find Tormenting Tarmac, of course, on Instagram at Tormenting Tarmac. And you can go ahead and find us streaming on Apple and Spotify and all those good places at Tormenting Tarmac. And then I believe, since I didn't mess up anything editing wise, we should be able to go ahead and put this baby up on YouTube as well. So you'll go ahead and get a chance to go and see our lovely faces and us laughing and giggling this entire time. So go check us out and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And big shout out to, of course, Sheffield Watches, which is the official watch partner of Tormenting Tarmac. You can go ahead and find them. Oh, yeah. Let's freaking go. It's so weird to say that. But shout out to at Sheffield Watches, man. You can find them sheffieldwatches.com, American made. And they've got the Swiss movement, and then at a really, really, really affordable price. And just honestly, a great piece of hardware. So if you're into watches, go check them out, sheffieldwatches.com. That's enough plugs. We'll call it a wrap. Avery Sly, Harrison Woodruff. My name is Jorge Aquino, and you've been listening to Tormenting Tarmac. It's the podcast where the enthusiast never dies. Good night, everybody.